I can tell you from my experience, we have one of the best frameworks for circularity in our country as a policy. Okay? As a policy, we have got EPR, we have extended producer responsibility, we have got access to Swachh Bharat missions where you have got grants available. It's only when people come together collectively and work with the government, then these policies can materialize. Today, unfortunately, we are sitting in silos, but we are seeing that change happening now. And such collaborative projects where the government and the public, which is called the public-private partnership. As a government, they have the policy framework in place. Now it's for people to collaborate with the government and make it happen. I don't think it's only the government which has to do, it's also an equal responsibility of the people to participate.
How do you think circular economy can help lift up, get people out of poverty, uplift them out of poverty?
So, sir, I think it's a very relevant question, but I would be happy to share that from whatever understanding of SDGs I had. You are talking of two SDGs. One is SDG 1, no poverty, and the second is SDG 10, which is reducing inequalities. The moment how do I address this is because if I have got a resource like plastic which has come into my home and I convert this into value, I'm generating income, which is from SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. That money goes to the people who are working in that region, and that's how you generate economy, money for reducing poverty. So you can get the people who have no access to work, bring them into work. So that is one. And second is today, for example, we are working in Manipur, very remote northeastern state, whereas there is no economic activity. So a paver block made of cement has no value creation. So there's an inequality that the production is happening in Assam and the consumption is happening in Manipur about 1,000 kilometers or 800 kilometers. So how do we reduce that inequality of opportunity is by looking at using a local resource, local production and local consumption is how I think SDG 1 and SDG 10 will be connected, because SDG 8 can help both SDG 1 and SDG 10.
I hope, Shmuel, that answers your question.
Yeah, this answer, thank you very much. I want to ask you another short question. What government and authorities of India do for the development circular economy in territory of India?
Again, a very, very nice question, but we always complain about the government, but I can tell you from my experience, we have one of the best frameworks for circularity in our country as a policy. Okay? As a policy, we have got EPR, we have extended producer responsibility, we have got access to Swachh Bharat missions where you have got grants available. It's only when people come together collectively and work with the government, then these policies can materialize. Today, unfortunately, we are sitting in silos, but we are seeing that change happening now. And such collaborative projects where the government and the public, which is called the public-private partnership. As a government, they have the policy framework in place. Now it's for people to collaborate with the government and make it happen. I don't think it's only the government which has to do, it's also an equal responsibility of the people to participate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Moving on to the next question from Namuna. Can MLPs, multi-layer plastic, be recycled to make silica plastic blocks?
They are being done so. And that's one of the USPs, you can say the key findings which we got. When we started on this project, we were able to use MLPs and we continue to use MLPs. And you can go on, if you go on the website, you'll find a lot of information about that. It is because of this, it's not only MLP, we call of anything low value plastic. Low value plastic is also LDP, which is less than 50 micron, which you use in packaging or food packaging, very thin. All of these become an input material for the silica plastic block. And there's a lot of work done and experience is available.
So a personal question, could you elaborate more on the SPBs a little bit? Like what is the market it goes to, and maybe how did you come up with the concept itself?
Okay, so it was business as usual for us. So let me explain the foundry industry from where this germinated. foundry industry has been recycling metal for ages, centuries, which is where you are melting metal and putting into a shape and casting into a shape. That's why it's called a casting also. Okay, so foundry is the generic name for a place where you cast in metal. This cast molds are made of sand. Okay? This sand is again reused and recycled. So again, it uses that R ladder to some extent. But over a period of time, because of multiple use, some of this has to be replaced. This sand, which was getting disposed, we developed quite a technology from an Italian company to recycle it. After recycling, we found there was 30% dust which was remnant. And that's where the industry said, now what are you going to do with this dust? Because sand I could put in landfill, dust I can't put anywhere because it will fly. It can cause respiratory, and dust is one of the very big problems in our country also, if you see that way. So 2017 is when this question was asked, and I and my research colleague Rajnikant, we started to look at different ways, and we saw a video of a Russian company who was mixing plastic with dust and sand, and that triggered this idea that something like this could be possible. We took a batch mixer, we did some trials, and then we did a lot of trials with different kinds of plastic. It took us around 6 months to realize, no, this is something which involves. And that's when we named this as those two components, silica sand, which was coming from the foundry, and plastic, which was coming from the community. And we did not name it a brick because for us, it was a block. It was a material. It could be from any shape. Though the first product we made was a brick. So there's something called technology readiness levels from ideation to moving right up to commercialization. It is a long journey. So to cut it short, after making this process viable, we found the cost was not. So again, it was not cheaper. Okay, so it was better, but it was not cheaper. It was faster because we did not have any curing time. So as compared to a standard brick, which requires 21 days to cure, this is instant use. You make it, use it. Okay? But it was not cheaper. And we started working on how this can be re-engineered without subsidy. Because a lot of people say no subsidy should be given. I said that's a temporary crutch. It has to stand its own feet. So we'll support it till the time we are able to, it needs a crutch, but it has to stand on its own feet. It has to run. And then we started working on hollow bricks, paver blocks, and different product ideas as an engineering company. And that was where and that's why I said innovation also calls for design thinking. And we said, now let us look at this C block not as a block, as a material, okay? Like any other material. It's a dough, like you make with wheat flour and water, you put together dough. This is a dough. All I need is a mold, which I can put it into, and so we realize that if you are able to replace metal with this, then it takes away the cheaper part. Because this is 4 times lighter than metal. And some places, metal is used because there is no other material. So look at those spaces where you are able to give a better value. And that's how the silica plastic block kept on evolving to making planters. So we made a variety of products. We started from a brick construction and we moved to switch box, which we are using in our own machines. That switch box, my sister said, no, this is a succulent planter. It's all about how you look at things. And can you not make something bigger? We said, okay, we'll make a 4-inch planter. And then we made a 6-inch planter. And this planter gave us this confidence. Now this another segment, which is aspirational product. Okay? So we have now construction product, we have got engineering product, and we have got an aspirational product. So that opens up that entire spectrum. We have got coasters, we have got paperweights, and we say now it's about imagination. I think there's a question about circular living.
Yes,
I think they are both related because they coexist. Because for living, I also need money. Okay? But living is to do with the way I embrace resources, the way I look at resources. So economy is one part of it, but if I look at everything I touch in my life, this is something which I see it. I don't have a real answer, but anything which I'm associated with as a resource in my life, and I'm able to follow the R ladder in that, I would connect it to circular living. To put it simply, in my understanding, I'm not an expert of this subject.
Another question for me. You emphasized on the urgency of shifting to circular living because of consumerism or current overconsumption. What do you think is the biggest barrier to adopting circularity at scale in India?
I can't say there is one single barrier. There are multiple aspects we need to look at. But I think the lowest barrier we have to cross is, why should I pay more for something which I'm getting at a certain? Because nobody is going to increase my salary. Okay? I reach a certain equilibrium place where I know I have so much money and I have got a budget. Now, the first barrier I have to cross is, can I help if I'm able to bring a product which is going to reduce my cost of living? That is the first barrier to me. And to break that barrier, it requires the collection of all the stakeholders. And I'll give you the example of some things which have happened in our country, which not of many of us may have drawn. I give the example of LED lights. Okay? LED lights, if standalone, would have cost more than what we are having. And perhaps this is, I've not studied, but if I look at this business, if I was going to save 30% or 40% or 50% energy, rather than investing few thousand crores in a power plant, okay, I transfer that money into subsidizing it. Okay. So at a macroeconomic level, we have to look at the resources of funds and money are same. Somewhere I'm spending more. Can I support another system which is going to have a long-term impact? So it's about, look, there's something called behavior again on the UN, which is an empirical, is looking at long-term goodwill over short-term gains. Okay. Now that's a behavioral change, not only at the individual level, it's also at the enterprise or the national level. So two things. One, if I look at the barrier, is the first barrier for an individual to adapt is to see that the price is lower with the same level of parameters. Means I'm talking no compromise on quality, but the same price. The value is better. And at a macro level, the barrier is to converge this ecosystem into making this possible. I look at only these two ends of the barrier. In between, everything else is there. Okay, there's a question: how can I raise awareness on waste disposal? Train somebody. This is a very common question which I come across, and I thanks for putting this question. Get to know ready, whoever. And this was a question somebody asked me yesterday. What is it that you should do? I said, you start from yourself. First demonstrate, and then, so don't preach what you don't practice. If anybody wants to get involved in such activities, the first thing I would advise is to do it yourself. Number one, put it in public domain, make it being seen by people that what you are doing. And that is how I have got connected to Usha Talks. Yeah, that's the only method of people reaching out is you do something consistently without any expectation and start demonstrating, make some noise. Don't be very shy. Log kya kahenge means people say, oh, you are a kabadi wala. I said, doesn't matter. I've got plastic collected in my house. People leave plastic at my home. So am I kabadi wala? If kabadi wala is the term, I'm happy with it. What's wrong with kabadi wala? As long as I'm able to stay true to my purpose, what I say and what I do are aligned. So don't try to preach rag pickers and say, okay, I'll collect and give this to the rag pickers so they can make a livelihood. This connects to the first question: how do we live poverty? Okay, make those resources and give it to a rag picker. Lift his quality of life.
A participant has made a very interesting statement in the chat box. Recycling ecosystem should be incentivized. People involved in this activity find themselves offended or last resort to be there, not by choice. Think of a guy engaged in waste collection, in brackets, kabadi wala. So this is something somebody has, Mr. Ranveer has written in the chat box itself.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that a lot of these practices are very marginalized in our country. They're looked down. They're jobs that are looked down upon rather than looked up upon. A lot of
I think this is a word which I'll be very important. We said this word looked down upon.
Yeah.
That this is not celebrated. I'll tell you, I was on a forum in an engineering college discussing why engineers are not coming to core engineering. Okay? It's a very similar situation. People don't come to mechanical, electrical, civil today. Youth are not coming, choosing that. And I said, because we are not making engineering glamorous. And it's for us to blame. I said, people like us who are in manufacturing, we should celebrate. No, why should we shy away? He said, this is, I'm doing, and that's why I'm saying on the forum, I'm happy to be a kabadi man. What's wrong with it?
Yes, sir. So
if you
am
take pride in the work you do, if you take pride in the work you do, doesn't matter what people say. Be confident about yourself.
I saw the question in the chat box. It mentions innovation in enterprise risk management versus government initiatives and promotion to SDG. Challenges today for sustainable development.
You know, most of the time we are looking to the government to help us. And that's why I'm saying we are looking over. I would say if I'm able to build a business which doesn't require a cash, it's sustainable. And it requires a little bit of patience. At the same time, if the government initiatives align and somebody says, no, we'll support you. So I always put out this, I'm going at the speed of 1. I get support, I'll go at the speed of 10. If I'll get more support, I'll go at the speed of 100, but I'll continue at my speed of 1. If as an innovator, if you're not driven by scale, but driven by what is in your locus of control, and this is very important for us to understand how much एक हिंदी में कहावत है, पैर उतना ही फैलाओ जितनी चादर है. Okay? So first I must understand what is the risk I can take and then start working on that. And that's why again I keep on saying, do what you can do rather than letting others to do what they are supposed to. Move the focus to yourself and you'll find people who are of similar minds coming to you. It will not take long time. It will take a year, it may take 2 years, but if you're patient enough and you're persistent enough and you're committed to your cause, people will come.
Yeah,
so
thank
let's
you.
not get
Yes.
into why government should do this. Government, yeah.
Right. It's a very difficult, like, when the enterprise people take up and they say we need to produce a product which is, required for the society as a whole, and suddenly you find that your product is not more sustainable because it has a lot of got environmental issues as such.
Right.
And understanding that, what happens is you get into a mode where you think, should I make money or should I make a sustainable product? Obviously sustainable products makes in long term profit to the individual or the enterprise that has initiated it, and it helps an environment also. But definitely it's a big challenge when the enterprises try to recreate a sustainability in their own product, and which is unless supported by the government initiatives or the platforms, definitely is it's a challenging task. I would still say that, because I'm for you.
Yeah.
And definitely I would like to say that, because see, I have seen many places all over the world, Middle East and Africa. So I was in the oil and gas. Again, the impacts on the social impact is like that. When you do a lot of drilling of oil and gas, there's a lot of mud generated, which saw a lot of chemicals in it, which what they do is, which our division was like trying to recirculate it, through centrifuge process, and just putting into the chemical as a top up in the fresh chemicals. And there was a mud left where there's some sort of oil traces, or some mud was there, which is again nothing but the geosphere of the earth. And again, what they used to do is, whenever they used to do drilling and all, they used to put it along the drill well, make a pit, liners with and all, and keep it stored, right? And it's a desert, and people think desert is a desert. It's a has been put it as well, but desert has its own ecology also. And desert has its own ecology and all. We try to understand, because there is flora and fauna, and it has ecology. It takes a lot of time to understand. Only the desert people know that.
So, sir, if I can just pick up a few points from your narration.
Yeah.
Number one, you said that sustainability for people, the first thing which I look at, really need this. Okay?
Yeah.
The first question I need to ask is, who is my customer?
Right.
Thinking that they are my customer, or are they telling me they are my customer? It's a very big difference. And so we imagine that Trishant is a customer for my product. That's my imagination. And what do? I say, okay, if you say you're liking it, put your money on the table and say this is a contract.
Yeah.
So the first thing which I have learned to make a business is have a contract with the buyer.
True, exactly.
And if the buyer is not ready, I said, forget my emotions. I'll do whatever I'm doing.
True. Yes, and putting a perspective of mind.
Because sustainability, as I said, is about people, planet, and profit, not profit alone.
Yes.
Now, if the people are not part of this, then how will I get profit?
True.
And if I'm not doing something in the planet, how do I maintain ecology?
Yes.
Okay, so everything which is coming out from the mother is a resource.
Right.
Okay? And there's some buyer for that. Rather than trying to look only for the technology solution, if I'm also trying to understand who's going to buy my customer,
right,
get customer to buy in. See, government is an enabling environment, is a policy maker. The one thing which I always look at, the government should not get into implementation. This to our own manufacturing, where I say the production person, the quality person should be separate.
Yeah, true.
Now today we are saying I'll be the designer also and I'll be the manufacturer also. How will it work?
Right.
There's going to be some biases which will come in.
Right.
So it has to do something with the basic philosophy on which this business is built.
True. Yeah. The overall layer is enterprise risk management with sustainability in factor. Putting my perspective further, I said, because they were dumping it, and again we have the technology to deliver, but again the customer has to pay for that, because that was the challenge. So what we used to do is, they used to dump all the mud towards certain location, and we used to do that. Ultimately, the customer is paying to us. That the customers in the oil and gas, we cannot go forward. We just
sir, the customer is paying, but am I also looking at the customer can pay year on year? am I also investing in the sustainability of my customer,
Yeah, true.
sustainability of my own
Yeah.
enterprise?
And that was the key factor
Sustainability
was,
has multiple layers. For an ecosystem to survive, there's a saying, rising tides will lift all the boats. Am I caring for my boat
right.
or am I caring for the tide?
True.
The
I
business
understand.
decision has to come from a better decision would be when I'm feeling the tide, not lifting at my boat. My boat will rise in any case, no, if I lift the tide.
True. Thank you, sir.
So the customer's interest should be as equal as my interest.
True, exactly. I would say more than, because ultimately technology is there, solution is there. But ultimately, they want to preserve their land. They need to pay up, because otherwise it will not happen. It keeps on lying there for years and years. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to get on to the next question from Mr. Ranbir again. Defense has so much of procurement, which is 90% disposed of unused. Can governments world over be made to understand environmental impact of it? Yeah, he's also quoted very good, informative session.
I think the answer lies within the question.
True.
So you have also answered that somebody who's going to take this up is the government. See, it's not only about defense. So we look at defense because it's something outside. I keep on going back. Am I able to do this on my own? Am I looking at my own system or my own living? And that's why I go back to circle. That rather than telling what others are doing wrong, they may have their own reasons, but can I start to demonstrate on myself and then say that I'm doing this and why can't somebody else do this?
Sir, I'd like to unmute Shravani ma'am. She's the founder of Vishwa.
See, there's a very interesting thing you had said, and that is you said that you have downsized your house.
Yeah.
So here I am. When we were building the house, my husband said we want a big rooms for each of the child. Now we built the house, the kids went off abroad to study, and then now they're married. Each one is living in their own homes. And I'm stuck as just like you in a big house. I'm living only in the ground floor. I hardly go to the top floors. So I enjoy my house. It's beautiful. I love the garden. It's very self-expressed, the home, everything. Now I can tell my kids, you come and stay with me. So one day by mistake, when they came and stayed, till 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, loud music, people going around. So it's difficult when they were leaving, it felt bad. You still want them to be here. But when you're used to the calmness of this life, trying to adjust with someone is difficult. So what's your solution for that?
I think that multiple perspectives, ma'am, which you're talking about is a very deep thought, it's a very deep question. Is today, how much are we looking at expectations as a part of our life? And sometimes we are driven so much by expectations that it impacts our decision making. So one of the things am I expecting that my child should stay with me? Okay. And does the child expect something from me? This is one. Second is the space. So there's a certain space we call relativism as a way of living. Is if I'm able, and it comes from tolerance, is something as an attribute as we have grown up to being tolerant, living in a joint family. It has its own learning. Every system has its own plus and but as we have evolved, we have what is existing today. Look at the existing system today and figure out what is the best way to live in this existing system rather than worrying about what was in the past is how we have started living. So not holding on to materialistic things, not holding on to expectations from the world, expectations from your children. Detachment perhaps is one of the most difficult things to practice. And if you're able to master detachment, I think it's directly connected to my stress, what's happening around. I don't have an answer to you, but I think this is a situation for many, many people today who have invested in big houses and the children are outside. Because see, when we grew up, we did not have so many opportunities available. Today, the youth have so many opportunities and we also wish they would grow. So why don't we step back and say, and this is related to this question the gentleman asked, that the customer, when I said, does my child want this? Is a question I'll say. So who's my customer of that room? Is my child. And I'll ask a simple question, do you want this? Then these are the rules of the game. Okay? If you want to, because this is how the system works. So somewhere there are some lines which need to be drawn in a way of coexistence of people. I know it's not a simple answer to give, but I'm trying to give what best I'm able to give, and you can reflect on it.
Sure.
But I think detachment is something which our mother taught us. And I really remember that and keep on detaching from things which pull me down.
I'll follow that. Thank you.
I'd like to add a point to that. I think Vishwa is doing a pretty good job in terms of circular living because we entered our office is also using ma'am's residential space basement. So it does use up the space quite a lot.
That is our one ladder, which is rethinking, sharing resources.
Yes.
So you can just go back to the ladder and find you are connected to R1.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.